This is Professor Michael Chapman. I'm one of the most experienced IVF doctors in Australia. I believe that an important part that I can contribute is to educate patients in relation to fertility, infertility, and all that involves. These series of podcasts help to educate you. I hope they are helpful to you. If you wish to know more, however, I'm more than happy to have you contact me via email, which is profmchapman@gmail.com, or make an appointment to see me on 9138 4222.
So, Prof, I have a question from Logeshwari. Recent X-ray done with dye to check my fallopian tubes resulted in right tube being blocked or not viable. The left is clear and viable. Can laparoscopy clear the block on my right tube?
It really depends what's caused the block. I start by saying that a block can actually be an artifact, that the tube can go into spasm, particularly in the area just by the uterus, because, as you will know, it's a very uncomfortable procedure. So the uterus, in response to having it being manipulated and dye being pushed in, can actually contract and therefore make it look as though that the tube's blocked. That's the first thing. Secondly, but certainly a laparoscopy would show whether that's true or not. Secondly, the block may be due to a mucus plug, and at laparoscopy, because we can put more pressure on the fallopian tubes through the fluid we put through the neck of the womb, we may be able to clear it that way. However, if the cause of the block is scar tissue due to endometriosis or to previous infection, then the odds of clearing that are very low. What is important if we did a laparoscopy was to make sure that you don't have a dilated tube called a hydrosalpinx, because that will reduce your chances of getting pregnant. And our suggestion would be to remove that if that was the case. So where to from here? To know exactly what's going on, I usually do recommend having a laparoscopy, and for all the various reasons I've just outlined.
Prof, we have a question from Donna. Adenomyosis noted on ultrasound, but completely asymptomatic. Will this influence ability to get pregnant? Thank you.
It depends on the severity. Adenomyosis is not that uncommon, and lots of women who have adenomyosis get pregnant. So it's not a plus or minus. When it's more severe, it can impede implantation, because of the inflammation that adenomyosis can cause in the lining of the womb. The problem is that to treat it is actually very difficult. Suppression of it can lead to its resolution using drugs, but that's not very successful. Cutting it out is really a non-starter unless it's very severe, because the uterus that you end up with after cutting it out is a very damaged uterus. So it depends on the severity as whether it's going to interfere with your chances of pregnancy.
So Prof. Logeshwari says, thank you.
One of the things that there's a big debate about at the moment is whether the lining of the womb, testing that it's in the right stage at the time of putting an embryo back is a valuable test. Just to go back a little bit, the physiology, the normal processes that go on inside the uterus in preparation for a pregnancy are that under the influence of estrogen in the first 14 days, the lining of the womb regrows after, obviously, it's shed during menstruation. Then at the time of ovulation, progesterone begins to be produced by the ovary, and that progesterone alters the lining of the womb by creating glandular cells which secrete all the goodies that help implantation. And they reach a peak around about 6 or 7 days after ovulation. Those changes can actually be looked at if I take a sample of the lining of the womb. There are specific time-related changes that the pathologist can see that say this must be day 5 after ovulation or day 8 after ovulation. And there's probably a small group of women in whom that synchrony is not there. That for reasons we don't understand, maybe it's not enough progesterone, maybe it's too much progesterone too early. Those changes occur 4 or 5 days before or 2 or 3 days late, and therefore putting an embryo back at that particular time might not be successful. However, those tests are not that accurate. They're plus or minus 2 days. That's looking at it from a histological point of view, from looking under a microscope at the structure. And more recently, and a Spanish group and now others around the world have looked at the genetic makeup of the cells, the expression of particular genes at that time of implantation, and claim that on the basis of the changes that occur, just as they do in anatomy, they also change in terms of genetic expression. They can say that this is a good endometrium in the right phase or not. As a test called ERA, which has been popularised by marketing from that particular company at a cost of around $1,500 to show whether the lining is in synchrony or not. Randomised controlled trials from their own unit have now shown it has no value in improving success rates. So I certainly tell my patients not to waste the money.
And don't forget that you can access all the previous episodes by going to our website www.theivfjourney.com and select IVF Journey podcast from the navigation menu.